Greetings, Battle Brothers. Today we're looking at the 4 key assault units that you'll run in your 9th edition list. The Death Company, the Death Company Intercessors, the Sanguinary Guard, the Vanguard Vets. I've compared damage and survivability in both melee and ranged for all these units. I've also tried to build the best 10-man squad you can, and then we're comparing points as well. There's a ton of math hammer here, and it'll let you build the best army list you can for 9th edition. If we're just meeting, I'm John, the Blood Angels Commander. If you want more Blood Angels content on your YouTube homepage every week, make sure you hit that red subscribe button and click the bell and turn on your notifications. So this video is a little different to the normal tactics video, with supplement drop last week and the Space Marine Codex coming out tomorrow. We're kind of in a weird place, so I thought what we'd do is look at the assault units, because we know some of them have changed, and we'll just compare everything. So let's dive straight into the presentation. So there's the Sanguinary Guard v Death Company and the Intercessors, and against Vanguard Vets. We're going to compare it all. So we're going to look at Warscrolls, we're going to look at survivability, 10-man squads plus points, damage, conclusion, optimal config, and honor guard. We've got a lot to get through today. So first of all, Sanguinary Guard, +1 to attack, -1 to hit and melee. Deathmask no longer debuffs leadership. We got +1 to both strength from the axe and the sword. They now do a flat 2 damage. Power Fist obviously got changed to flat 2 as well. Angelus Bolt Gun got 6 inches additional range, and you're 30 points per model. So 5 for your Infernal Pistol, 5 for your Plasma Pistol, 5 for your Power Fist, and your base loadout of your Bolt Gun, and your Sword or your Axe is free, I suppose, with your jump pack, so that's 30 points per model. So Death Company Marines, we knew they were going to get 1 extra wound, and we knew that the Black Range was going to change. So Black Rage gives them 1 additional attack, however they can no longer fall back out of combat. Black Rage also gives them a 6+ Feel No Pain. We're 22 points per model, so with jump packs you're essentially 25, and then the costs for weapons for these guys are 5 for the Hand Flamer, 5 for the Infernal Pistol, 5 for the Plasma Fist, 5 for the Power Axe, 10 for the Power Fist, 5 for the Power Maul, 5 for the Power Sword, and 15 for the Hammer. So the Hammer seems quite expensive for these guys, but I mean, I guess it is what it is. I guess it's they can take a few hammers, whereas other Death Company or the Death Company Intercessors can't. We're going to jump straight into those. So your Death Company models, all models can now take the Heavy Bolt Pistol and Chainsword, same as your Assault Marines. And basically it's very confusing. You can read this section if you want. What I've managed to understand from it is that you can have 2 strong melee weapons. So when we come to make our 10-man squad later, I'll show you what I've picked. I think I picked 1 Thunder Hammer and 1 Power Fist, but the section does read pretty difficult to understand. I haven't put all the weapon options here, just some of the key ones that I would put in a Death Company. So you're 24 points per model, so only 1 point less than the previous Death Company with the jump pack. The only difference in the stat line is these guys get 1 additional attack. So you can have a Grenade Launcher for 5, Hand Flamer, Plasma Pistol for 5, Power Sword for 5, and then your Power Fist is 10 and your Thunder Hammer is 20. I guess they're a little bit more expensive because you have an additional attack, but you can only have 1 of them in the squad. So in the end, I guess, yeah, we'll see. Moving on, Vanguard Veterans. So this is actually a leak from the Space Marine Codex, but I trust it, and I went and compared it back with the Vanguard Veteran Squad in the original Codex, so there is no change. So these guys are 19 points per model. You 2 for your jump pack and 4 for your storm shield. So if you do put a jump pack and a storm shield on them, then you're 25 points per model. So the exact same price as your Death Company. So if you think about it, the Death Company have their 2 wounds, 3+ save, 6+ Feel No Pain. These guys now have 2 wounds, 2+ save, 4+ invulnerable save. So these guys are definitely a little bit harder to shift, I guess, if you have low AP weapons, or hell, even if you have high AP weapons. Loadout for these guys, there is a lot of options. I've purposely mentioned Relic Blade, Power Fist, and Thunder Hammer because that's how I've built my squad of guys. But you can have Lightning Claws. Lightning Claws did just get buffed, so each Lightning Claw gives you an extra attack. You can have an Infernal Pistol, you can have Power Axe, and you can have a Hand Flamer. So, quite a lot of options on the 3 except the DC Intercessors. They don't really have many options. So if we talk about survivability, what I've done for this is we've done 10 shots with multi-meltas, 20 shots with storm cannons, 20 shots with grav, and 24 shots with heavy bolters. So try to base it on stuff that's actually in the game. So like if a Devastator squad drops down with multi-meltas, you're going to get hit 10 times. if a Leviathan Dreadnought has two Storm Cannons, you're going to get hit 20 times. Grav Cannons from Devastators, 20 shots, and then like 2 Hurricane Bolters, 24 shots. That's very similar, I suppose, to if you had a Terminator Squad deep striking and they would have like 20 shots. So, for every single thing, I've done the math, and how I would do the maths is I would take the 10 hits, for example, and I would work out like what they're going to be hitting on. I would essentially roll the d6 and then work out what they're wounding on, working out what the chance of save. So this is all probability based, so this is exactly what would happen if the dice rolled averages every turn, right? There's always going to be plus or minus, there's always going to be fluctuations, but this is what you can expect to happen. So if a 10-man Devastator squad drops in and shoots at your Sanguinary Guard, you're going to lose 5 or 6, and they're equipped with multi-meltas, you're going to lose 5 or 6 guys. You're going to the reason I've put wounds separately is because, like, for example, multi-meltas are now 2 plus d6 at half range, so on average each shot is going to kill a guy, right? Because a d6, half of that is 3.5, so this could potentially do, like, it's just going to kill 6 guys. On the Storm Cannon, you're also going to lose 5 or 6 guys. They're going to do 12 wounds, so that's going to be like, you can see here that, like I said, that there was going to be 11 wounds. You're only going to save half of them, so essentially you're going to lose 5.5 models, so that's where your 12 wounds comes from. I suppose with the multi-meltas, if we look at that, you're going to take 6.1 wounds, you're only going to save 1, so you're going to lose like 5.1 models, so that's why I've said between 5 and 6. And each shot from the multi-melta, I guess I've averaged as 6 damage, because you've got this 2 plus 6 now. So yeah, you'd lose, if it was a different squad, you would potentially lose 30 wounds, but we're just assuming the models are dead at this point. So then I've gone through like the Grav Devastators, 6 or 7 models, 14 wounds. The Bolters, only 1 model, 1 or 2 wounds. So we've done this for everything. Now this took me ages, and this is only range damage. We've done it for a lot more. If you want to follow it through, I then will summarise it so we can sort of see it in a nice easy chart. Death Company and Death Company Intercessors save on the same dice in range, I guess. So it's the same thing. If you get hit by the 10 multi-meltas, expect to lose 5 or 6 guys. The 20 Storm Cannon, expect to lose 6. The Grav Cannons, expect to lose 7 or 8. And the Bolters, expect to lose like 1 model. I could have made a mistake in here, right? This was a lot of math. So if you see a mistake, pause the video and check it out, let me know. And then Vanguard Veterans, obviously with their Storm Shields. So against the multi-meltas, these guys fare a lot better, only 3 wounds lost. Against the Storm Cannon, there's no real difference because it's the same 4+, the invulnerable save doesn't kick in anymore with the Storm Shield changes. If you're not aware of the Storm Shield changes, Storm Shield's no longer save on 3+, it's now save on 4+ invulnerable and add 1 to your base save. So before, Vanguard Veterans would just always save on a 3+, now they save on a 2+ or the 4+ invulnerable save. So Storm Cannon, no real difference. At the Grav Gun, they do better against that as well, and then the regular Bolters is just 1 guy. So then we've summarised this. Red is good, orange is average, and green is best. W is obviously wounds, and then M is models. M is probably the more important stat because that's how many models you're removing off the table, but W is wounds. I thought that would be interesting because the new rule is you can bring a medic, and the medic gives you a 6+ feel no pain. So if you're only losing 1 or 2 wounds, if you had that medic near, there's a chance you would save it. If you're losing 10 wounds, then probably not so much chance that you're going to save 10 6s in a row to keep those guys alive, right? And then I categorised like the minuses of the weapons here. So if we just compare on range damage, then your Vanguard Veterans are actually your strongest unit. Against the multi-melta, they only lost 3, whereas the others lost about 5. The Storm Cannon, the damage was very much same across the board. The Storm Cannons are really quite nasty weapons. The Grav Cannon, again, Vanguard Veterans came out on top. Sanguinary Guard not too far behind. Death Company are basically going to get annihilated by a Grav Devastator squad. And then Bolters, all very much and such the same. So on the first test, Vanguard Veterans, then Sanguinary Guard, then the Death Company coming in last. So then we'll do survivability against melee. So the same thing goes. This time, because I wasn't really like melee weapons are broken by squads, I just thought I'd do 10 attacks. So 10 attacks in hindsight was maybe a little bit low. Like normally when you get charged by some squad, they're doing more than 10 attacks. But this will allow us at least to compare all the units again and see who comes out on top. So Sanguinary Guard against 10 Thunderhammers, they're going to lose 1 model, 3 wounds. Against 10 Mastercrafted Power Swords, so that's basically Vanguard Veterans. Sorry, the Thunderhammers would be on Terminators, right? So I used the ballistic skill of like Space Marines for these. So basically 10 Terminators would normally hit on 4s with Thunderhammers, right? Because Terminators hit on 3s, -1, so they would hit on 4s, but Sanguinary Guard have this additional -1 now, so they actually only hit on 5, so out of the 10 Terminators, only 3.3 hits. That resulted in only 2 wounds, and that's why they only lost 1 model. So, Mastercrafted Power Swords and the Vanguard Veterans normally hit on 3s, they'd now be hitting on 4s, so you get 5 hits, 3.3 wounds, you'd make 1 save, so 2 or 3 models would be lost against 10 hits from the Mastercrafted Power Swords. Against Chainswords, Sanguinary Guard don't really even care about chainswords. They maybe lost a wound because obviously they save on 3s, I guess. And then against no weapon, again, very, very strong. This -1, because it's at the top of the flow, right? Like hits go, and then wounds, and then armor saves. It really, -1 on those hits is huge for the Sanguinary Guard in melee. They are monsters in melee now. Death Company Intercessors. So against the Thunderhammers, they lost 9 wounds. Against the Power Swords, they lost 5. Chainswords, it was 1 or 2, and no weapon, it was 1. Vanguard Veterans, they also lost 9 wounds against the Thunderhammers. Thunderhammers have been changed to -2, so their invulnerable save didn't help them out here anymore. Mastercrafted Power Swords, sorry, they maybe did a little bit better because they're -3 now. And then, again, they very much take no damage or very little damage against Chainsword and no weapons. So, once we get into the melee, red is bad again. The colour scheme will continue all the way through the presentation. So Sanguinary Guard, you can see here, against 10 attacks of each of these weapons, their casualties are non-existent, I guess. Maybe against the Power Swords, you can lose a couple of guys. Vanguard Veterans come in right behind them. No real difference, maybe just 1 wound difference between the Chainswords. No real difference with the Power Swords. They should have actually performed a little bit better, but I guess the -1 to hit, like I said, is actually really strong. And then the -1 to hit really comes in when you talk about the Thunderhammers. Not having those Thunderhammers hit you because they're already obviously -1 makes a huge difference. So, Sanguinary Guard, super tanky in melee now. Vanguard Vets, pretty tanky, and Death Company, I guess at this point, Death Company are average. So now the aim at this point in the presentation, before we go further, is I wanted to calculate us doing damage with these units, right? So what I needed to do was get a 10-man squad of each unit type and make them as, like, how would I put 10 men onto the board in an ideal world? So this is where I just tried to basically build a 10-man squad for each of the 4 types. So we start with Sanguinary Guard, built a 10-man squad. We put 6 Power Fists, so I guess the other 4 are like, I think for this I just chose 2 axes, 2 swords and the 6 Power Fists. And then you've got 7 bolters. I always like a couple of Infernal Pistols in here. These might actually be called Inferno Pistols, I don't know, but I like them because they can just pop 6 damage. I think in the new rules they can now do 8 damage because they get +2 in half range. You're usually in half range anyway, right? Because you're about to charge, so you want to be as close as you can. So if you're within 3 inches, you potentially just do, I don't know, probably like 20+ damage now, easily with those Infernal Pistols. If you're near your Warlord, you maybe even have like +1 to hit, so you're probably hitting on 2s. And then I don't rate Plasma Pistols. I have some models with them on, it's fine. I don't like killing my own models for the chance of killing an enemy model, right? Because you don't always kill the enemy model, but you will kill your own model if you've got one. So this is a strong Sanguinary Guard, 345 points. Death Company, plus jump packs. I run my Death Company always with jump packs. That's 250 points. We always put some Thunderhammers into the Death Company, right? So they're quite expensive. So 45 points to Thunderhammer. And then again, same deal with Infernal Pistols. Put 2 of them in. So 305 points for the 10-man Death Company. For the Death Company Intercessors, we're going to take 10 of them again. We're going to give 8 of them Chainswords. We're going to give 1 a Power Fist and 1 a Power Hammer, like I said. And then we're going to take 2 Hand Flamers. These guys don't get Infernal Pistols as options, but they do get Hand Flamers. Hand Flamers just did get buffed. The range got increased. So I figured, why not try some Hand Flamers? Hand Flamers tend to be kind of iconic for Death Company as well. So these guys are the cheapest of the 3 so far, 280 points. And then the Vanguard Vets. So the Vanguard Vets come in at 19 points a model, but we're going to give them jump packs. We're also going to give them storm shields. We're then going to give 3 Thunder Hammers, 3 Power Fists, a Relic Blade on the Sergeant, because that's like a special weapon he's allowed, and then 3 Chain Swords. And that's in at 300 points. So, if we just go back, so Death Company Intercessors are cheapest, then it's the Vanguard Vets, then it's your regular Death Company, and then it's the Sanguinary Guard. So here's your point overview, and like kind of like a quick look at what we just talked about, like in one table. So Sanguinary Guard, Death Company, jump, and the Vanguard Vets obviously have jump packs. The Vanguard Vets only one with storm shields. Sanguinary Guard have 6 Power Fists. The Death Company Intercessors have 1. The Vanguard Vets have 3. The basic weapons for the Guard, like I said, it's going to, although it says 4 times, it's 2 swords, 2 axes. Death Company have 7 chain swords. Intercessors have 8 chain swords. Vanguard Vets have 3. Sanguinary Guard have 3 Infernal Pistols, Death Company have 2, no one else has anything. Thunder Hammers, we got 3 in the Death Company jump packs, 1 in the Intercessors, 3 in the Vanguard Vets, and then other was just like anything that we didn't talk about. So the 2 Hand Flamers and the Relic Blades, and there's your points. So these are 10-man squads. I think they're pretty strong. Maybe you want to change things, that's totally up to you, but I just wanted to build some for this next comparison, which is them doing damage, which is ultimately why they're on the board, right? To do damage. Okay, so Sanguinary Guard near your Warlord, get the +1. So I just looked at the raw damage they could do. I assumed that we're in turn 1 and 2. I didn't add the additional attack from Savage Echoes. So against toughness 8, they do 34 wounds. Against toughness 6, they can do 41. And against toughness 4, they can do 48. I didn't care about multiple wounds. I just put down the absolute maximum damage they could do. And that is what we're basing this comparison on. So that's your Sanguinary Guard in melee. Your Death Company with jumps, it's 19.6, 20.6, 24.2, so quite a bit less, almost half down here. Your Death Company Intercessors, it's 18, 20, and then 30. I guess the extra chain swords down here make up for what they lose. Obviously against these toughness 6s and toughness 8s, they're only wounding on like 5s and 6s. It's not ideal with the amount of chain swords that you have to run in the Death Company Intercessors, because you don't get that many weapon options. And then the Vanguard Vets, it's 20, it's 28, and then it's 30. So these guys seem to do quite a bit better against armor, but against regular Marines, their weapons aren't really designed, I guess, for killing regular Marines, or I guess that's just the way it works with them. Okay, so, and then we've got a table of all that just as it is. So, like you mentioned before, the Sanguinary Guard, they absolutely smash it. They are the best by far in melee. The Vanguard Vets come in a second, but not too far ahead of the Death Company Intercessors. Even though their medium damage is quite a bit different, I kind of tied these guys as second. But I suppose, and then the regular Death Company came in a dead last. And then we looked at range damage, because they obviously have guns as well. So again, I assumed that the Sanguinary Guard were near your Warlord. So it's 6 against the Leviathan, 9 against the middle, and 18 against the Marines. The regular Death Company is 4, 6, 8. So again, about half. Your Death Company, sorry, that's your Death Company, and then this is actually Death Company Intercessors. Sorry, I've messed up the name on the slide. They do half again, so these guys are really ineffective at shooting. I think that the fact that the regular Death Company had a couple of Infernal Pistols really bumped up their damage, whereas your Death Company Intercessors just have really bad damage or really poor damage. And then your Vanguard Vets, they're worst at shooting by far. They literally have a crack grenade. And that can maybe do like 1 damage. It has got D3, but in terms of averages, it's 0.44, 0.66, 0.88. It never actually even gets to 1, just because obviously you only get to hit on 3s. So you only hit on 3s and you wound on 3s. So it's difficult to get to 1. Okay, so then again we color coded this. The Sanguinary Guard win on shooting as well. The regular Death Company actually come in second in shooting. The Death Company Intercessors are generally quite bad with their shooting, and the Vanguard Vets, well, they only got a grenade. What can you expect from that? So that's your shooting, and then we put all that together. So total damage now, right? So we added the shooting and the melee together. And this is the raw damage that they could do: 40, 51, 57. Clearly in first, the Sanguinary Guard. In second, we have the regular Death Company. It's the Infernal Pistols that really push them over. So they come in second. Then sort of tied in third this time, or sorry, I've actually said the Vanguard Veterans are in third, just slightly ahead. Again, they do a lot better against the middle armour. They maybe do a little bit weaker against Marines, but I don't think Vanguard Veterans with Power Fists and Thunder Hammers and Relic Blades are really supposed to be jumping into combat with Toughness 4 enemies. You know, they're supposed to be getting into like the 6, 8, 7, 8 toughness things. So I've ranked them third, and then Death Company Intercessors fall last. And if you add up all these numbers, I just put them together as a total. This total means nothing. There's no in-game value associated to it. It just is a number that I wanted to see to try and like gauge how much better these might be. So this number is almost here. The Sanguinary Guard number is almost double the Death Company, and if you look at these numbers, they are almost double. So in terms of raw damage output, your Sanguinary Guard is almost double the Death Company, and I guess kind of double these other two as well because they're just slightly behind. But so that gives you an indication of how strong the Sanguinary Guard are. Remember, these numbers for the Sanguinary Guard were generated if they're next to their Warlord. And being next to their Warlord, I guess, gives them like a 16% higher chance to hit because they now hit on 3s rather than 2s. Each number on the D6 is essentially 16.66, repeating, of course, right? So I suppose if they weren't near the Warlord, you'd probably take 16% off that, so it wouldn't be as much. But I think Sanguinary Guard, if you've got them on the board and they're not near the Warlord, you're maybe playing them wrong, or maybe I'm just playing them wrong. But I guess just expect to do like 20% less damage probably if they're not near the Warlord. Alright, so moving in, like an overall summary where we took the ranged and the melee and the points cost and their survivability all together. So Sanguinary Guard win on every category except survivability against range. However, they are the most expensive. Vanguard Vets come second, I guess, on survivability. They actually win on the range survivability. They come second in the melee rankings. They suck at range because they only got the grenades, so they kind of finish overall third. The Death Company, although they have the poorest survivability, and I guess they finished last on the melee, which is surprising considering they had 3 Thunder Hammers, right? I guess it's just the Thunder Hammers are only hitting on 4s. They come in second on the range purely because of those Infernal Pistols. It might be worth actually having the Death Company with a few more Infernal Pistols. So they finish the second. And then the Death Company Intercessors, everyone's super excited about Death Company Intercessors. I'm sorry, boys. I mean, unless you want them to be dead last in everything, then that's kind of where they are. They maybe finished second on melee, but like it was so tight, they barely edged out the other ones. And you've got to remember, they only move 6, whereas everything else moves 12. They were cheapest on points, but not by enough to really make them stand out, I feel like. I think the Vanguard Vets are really interesting here because they survive really strongly. And you've got to remember as well, within this, the Death Company have a Feel No Pain. The Sanguinary Guard and the Vanguard Vets for these numbers here did not have a Feel No Pain. So if we get Standard of Sacrifice back, or if you want to run an Apothecary near them, then we do kind of get a 6+ Feel No Pain, so we can get the same Feel No Pain that the Death Company can get. So lots of interesting numbers and analysts there. Okay, so I've drawn some conclusions. In ranged, Vanguard Vets with their shields are like twice as survivable as the Death Company. Against high AP weapons, they just survive so much more effectively. In melee though, the -1 on the Sanguinary Guard, it's huge. It makes such a difference. 10 attacks against them barely even do a couple of wounds. If they can have a Feel No Pain, they're going to be like the ultimate king of close combat. I almost think there's no reason to choose a Death Company model. Even though I have a lot of Death Company models, only 5 points more per model. The Sanguinary Guard, they do double damage, and once they get into melee, they're just horrendously difficult to kill. Vanguard Veterans come a solid second. If you could add a Feel No Pain to the Vanguard Veterans, though, they will become very tanky. A very good squad for 300 points, I feel like. And both Death Company, I feel, are just a bit weak still. I know that they potentially get refusal to die for 1 CP. They can save on a 5+ and a 6+, but yeah, I'm not seeing overly the value in the Death Company. Maybe with Lamartis and his new litanies that only buff Death Company, and they can be the same litanies that you have elsewhere in your battle, there could be a place. But I think for the moment, personally, I'm not picking Death Company. Not the Intercessors, not the old ones with jump packs. If we look at damage, the Sanguinary Guard wreck. I did give them being +1 from being the Warlord, but I assume you would have him close. That's the whole point of the Sanguinary Guard. The other 3 squads did similar melee damage. The Vanguard Vets were slightly ahead, but then they did fall off, like when we looked at the overall, due to their lack of firepower. Death Company are really only effective against infantry and light armour due to the -1 chainswords. They may be a little bit more effective against characters with like toughness 4 to 6. Where they could inflict 20 to 30 wounds, but against like heavy armour, the Death Company, they just fall off very quickly. I guess, like I said, your Death Company could chew up melee units. If that's what you want to use them for, then that is a potential. And then the Death Company Intercessors have very little, if no advantage over regular Death Company. They do a couple of extra wounds against low toughness enemies, but they're worse against anything that's toughness 6+. They can't fly, and yeah, until Death Company Intercessors get more options or some sort of amazing stratagems in our supplement, maybe they're going to get Honour of the Chapter so they could fight twice. At that point, maybe we could have them. I just can't see myself picking them, even as though they're the cheapest option. Delivering them into battle in Impulsors is too expensive because they only can get like 6 units in an Impulsor. And then at 2 CP to take like a 10-man squad as strategic reserves, I think I'd rather just save the 2 CP and use a regular squad of Death Company. So, yeah, I at this point, I hope that's helped. Please go back through this. Please look at the slides. If you want the slides, someone ask me in the comments and I can share them. Maybe there was a couple of mistakes, but hopefully it shows you the strengths of all of them. From melee and ranged, obviously I don't know anything about stratagems yet. I guess everything is probably going to change with their new supplement next month, but we're going to go on to the optimal values next, which I think is super interesting. But hopefully, yeah, I feel like this has me, like, I am either taking Sanguinary Guard or Vanguard Veterans in my army at this point. It will depend, like, if I'm not taking a tournament army, if I'm just playing as friends. My friend has a very shooty army, I'm taking Vanguard Vets. If he has a very melee army, I'm taking Sanguinary Guard. You know what, maybe even take 5 of each or something. That might be an interesting option as well, because they are very similar in points. There was only like a 15% difference. So next we're going to look at optimal and the optimal strategy to run these guys and how to get them really powered up. So obviously Commander Dante will join the Sanguinary Guard or your Vanguard Vets. This will give you reroll hits until the next command phase. A Sanguinary Priest joins both these squads again. You add a 6+ feel no pain to all units, and you actually gain the -1 from the Blood Chalice from turn 1. You don't gain the additional attack. The way it's worded is, for the purpose of the attack, the Assault Doctrine is active. It's not the Assault Doctrine is active, but it just means you get -1 all their weapons if the Sanguinary Priest is within 3. And then if the Sanguinary Ancient joins you, you also get to add 1 to all the melee attack rolls. And then on death, on a 4+, you get to attack 1 final time with melee arranged. This is another reason that I love an Infernal Pistol. If you do die with an Infernal Pistol model, 4+, oh well, I'm going to shoot you one last time with an Infernal Pistol. If Dante had already buffed them, then they're re-rolling their hits until the next turn. So a model that's dying can potentially do 9 wounds because he's going to be within 3 of the enemy, I'm assuming that he's just been killed by, right? So to get the optimal, this is what we run. And if we look at the optimal, then basically I've only looked at the toughness 8 tactic here. So basically what would happen is the Sanguinary Guard would get +1 hit from the banner. They get +1 hit because the Warlord was close, and then they'd re-roll their failed hits. At this point, hitting on 2s and re-rolling actually means they hit like 88% of the time. So this actually potentially makes you do 46 damage in a single turn, which is an increase of 35% on the previous calculation via the toughness 8 enemy. And note this is only the melee damage. The Sanguinary Guard could do 6 damage before shooting, and with the rerolls, like we just talked about, it would probably be more, so 7 or 8. So in one turn against a toughness 8 enemy, with a Warlord near, with a Sanguinary Priest near, with a Banner Bearer near, you're talking about being able to do 53 to 54 wounds against a toughness 8 enemy. And if you are in turn 3, then the Assault Doctrine kicks in, which gives us an additional 10 attacks, which, based on before, we had 4 attacks per model, so you're talking about 40 attacks. With the additional 10, you're basically talking about buffing that number 25%. So in turn 3, you can do 60 plus damage. However, the Vanguard Vets were another choice, right? So let's have a look at them. So the Vanguard Vets, the 3 Thunderhammers, the 3 Power Fists, the 3 Chainswords, and the Relic Blade, they get +1 to hit now from being near the Banner Bearer. They get to reroll failed hits from being near Dante. So, basically your attacks are hitting much more effectively, with the Thunderhammers now buffed to hitting on 3s. With the rerolls, they're now hitting 7.92 hits. So that ends up basically being 5.2 wounds. So if we follow this all down, basically the Thunderhammer do 5.2 wounds, the Power Fist do 5.2, the Relic Blade is 1.75, the Chainswords do 3.5. So potentially this is 33 damage in a single turn, which is quite a massive increase from the 60. It's a 62% increase over a previous calculation against the toughness 8 enemy. So having Dante and the Banner Bearer near the Vanguard Vets is super important. I mean, once you add in the Priest to give them the Feel No Pain as well, that's amazing. So basically, if you include the single crack grenade that we talked about before, it's going to hit on 2s rather than 3s. Yeah! So we're now going to do potentially 34 damage versus your toughness 8 enemies. Obviously, that's before saves and stuff, and that's what the strongest full man squad that we designed to do. And then in Assault Doctrine again, we could then do another 10 attacks, because there's 10 models, and that would potentially increase that number by about 25%. So if we compare the two, the Sanguinary Guard had 54 damage, the Vanguard Vets had 34 damage, but the Vanguard Vets were 15% cheaper. So if they were the same size in points, then you would expect the Vanguard Vets to be doing maybe like 40 if you buff that number by 15%. 15% is like another 5.1. So yeah, you do about 40. So Sanguinary Guard win definitely on damage. I feel like Vanguard Vets win on survivability though. I mean, the Storm Shield is going to be huge against any enemies with nasty minus modifiers. So it depends on how easily you think, again, you can get those Sanguinary Guard in combat. Because if they can't get into combat, then they are going to be hands down our best choice. But if you need something that's going to be able to still be alive 3 turns into the game, and you're going to move them across the board, then maybe Vanguard Vets is the choice for you. I really feel like I'm going to pick one of these 2 squads. So we've come a long way since the first Honor Guard, right? Do you like my photo from the early 90s? That was the first Honor Guard I ever have. I have that banner. I actually saw it the other day. So they were the first ever Honor Guard to protect our Lord Commander Dante. I guess it's hard to choose between the Sanguinary Guard and the Vanguard Vets. I'm kind of leaning towards the Vanguard Vets, just for the survivability if you need to get them across the board. Especially if they're accompanied by the new Apothecary, who could be the Warlord for guaranteed revives. I have built a list where I have a 10-man squad of Sanguinary Guard and a 10-man squad of Vanguard Vets, Dante, the Apothecary, and the Banner Bearer. I mean, that'd be some death ball, but I feel like it's a lot of eggs in one basket, right? However, if we talk again about damage, if you talk about the Vanguard Vets being able to do like 34 damage in the first couple of turns, buffed to maybe 40 damage in turn 3 beyond, it feels like I'm not sure I'm going to need the extra damage that Sanguinary Guard put out. However, the Vanguard Vet rely heavily on the buffs from like the characters and the Banner Bearer. Without them, their damage output is halved. Sanguinary Guard really don't take that hit as much. I mentioned before how the Sanguinary Guard were 15 points more expensive. But once you get into melee, they're going to be very, very difficult for the opponent to deal with. Your opponent may actually be best, I've said here, to fall back and just shoot at your Sanguinary Guard, because in their turn now you fight first. You don't want another turn of having to deal with you fighting first and then the minus to hit. So I think at this point I'll leave the rest in your capable hands, brothers. I hope this video provides a lot of information about the unit choices that we've got for going into 9th. You can leave me a comment below if there's something else that you think you would like me to look at, something I can try and break down until we get our supplement, because right now it's a bit difficult to pick videos for tactics. Hey, if you got value out of this video, please hit the like button. Helps other Blood Angels players find the channel. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope this video helps you achieve victory for the Blood Angels. If you want to leave me a comment below, I'll definitely read it and I'll reply, and let's keep the discussion going. 9th edition is definitely an exciting time for the hobby. I hope to see you in the next one. By the blood are we made. Peace.